Today's lesson we're going to learn how to use proportions to solve word problems, and it's very important that when you're working with word problems that you use labels. This will help keep you accurate when you are solving the problems. So we're going to use labels with our first ratio, and this will help us set up our second ratio in the correct order so that we can solve the problem. And then we'll use cross products to solve for the unknown portion of the proportion or to get our answer. Okay, so if you look at the example, our first step is going to be to set up the first ratio with labels. Okay, so our first ratio says that we've gone 240 miles with 15 gallons of gas, and we need to make sure that we have our labels on there, so now we know how to set up the second ratio and to make our proportion equal. Okay, now our second step is going to be to set up the second ratio equal to the first ratio, so we're going to use an equal sign, and we're going to put the labels in the same order as our first ratio. Okay, so now you can see that I've set this equal. I have miles on top and gallons on the bottom for the first ratio. So I also have miles on top and gallons on the bottom for the second ratio. I've used X as our unknown because we're trying to find how many miles we would be able to go on 28 gallons of gas. Our third step then will be to use cross products to solve the proportion and find out what the unknown is, or how many miles that we've gone. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply 240 times 28, 240 times 28, and I'm going to set that equal to 15 times x, or 15x. Well, when I multiply 240 times 28, I get 6,720 equal to 15x. Well, in order to solve my proportion, or my little equation that I have right here, I need to divide that large number by 15 so I can get rid of 15. So I'm going to divide this by 15, and that will tell us that x is going to be equal to 448 miles. Now tell me, how did you know, or how did we know that we were going to use miles for our label? Well, go back and look up at your proportion. Since we have a label on it, we know what the missing item is. We know how to label once we get an answer. Okay? Okay, so let's look at example 2. We're looking at cups of flour and teaspoons of salt. So let's go ahead and set up our proportion. Okay, so here's our proportion. We have 8 cups of flour to 6 teaspoons of salt. Notice I have cups on top, teaspoons on bottom for both ratios. And we want to find out how many cups of flour for 15 teaspoons of salt. So we're going to go ahead and do our cross products. We're going to multiply 8 times 15, and we're going to set that equal to 6 times x. And now we need to multiply 8 and 15, and we'll get 120 equal to 6x. But I want to know just what x is equal to. So since I have a 6 in front of the x, I need to divide 120 by 6, and we get x is equal to 20 cups of flour. And how did I know to use cups for my label? Because that's what I have labeled up in my proportion. Okay, for example 3, we have a problem about a student and teacher ratio, and it tells us that we have 450 students to 15 teachers, and it says they're going to add 2 more teachers, so that takes us up to 17. And now it wants to know how many students should attend the school if they keep the same ratio and have 17 teachers. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do this problem on your own, and we'll talk about it in class tomorrow. Please show your cross products and make sure you have a label on your answer. Okay, here are your 3 got it problems. There might be enough room at the bottom of your notes to do them. If there's not, just use a separate sheet of paper. But you're going to need to set up a proportion. Make sure you have labels so you know how to label your answer. Make sure you use cross products to solve for your answer, and then you'll need to divide by that number in front of x to get your final answer. Put a label on your answer, and we will check these tomorrow.